Babylon, man, I've been so torn thinking about this world lately. Babylon, truth is so deluded and it drives me crazy. Babylon, this lost world is so hopeless. Babylon, Jesus Christ, that's where hope is. Babylon, no matter what they say, it's still so lost, listen.
And in that day thou shalt say, O Lord, I will praise thee, though thou wast angry with me. Thine anger is turned away, and thou comfortest me. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For Jehovah is my strength and my song. He is become my salvation. Where therefore with joy shall ye draw water out of the wells of salvation. And in that day shall ye say, Praise the Lord, call upon his name, declare his doings among the people, make mention his name is exalted. Sing unto the Lord, for he hath done excellent things. This is known in all the earth. Cry out and shout, thou inhabitant of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel in the midst of thee. That is Isaiah 12. And this is Resisting Balaam, a podcast where we seek to encourage the saints to stand firm with him on his word against all of the accusations made by the world, the flesh, and the devil, as we engage the culture of death that demands the sacrifice of our children. I am Callie, and this is a Wrath and Grace podcast. Go check out the guys at wrathandgrace.com. Check out their app. Go listen to some of their teachings, the sermons, the music. They got a lot of good merchandise. Go to wrathandgrace.com. Like and share this content. Help me to distribute and make more of this content by supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/resisting Balaam. Okay, today we have a guest from Ohio. This is the communications director for Ohio Right to Life, Lizzie Whitmarsh. Lizzie, why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, first and foremost, for having me on. I'm very excited to have an honest discussion with you today. And just a little bit about myself, some background. I'm originally from the state of Ohio, grew up here. I grew up in a very Christian household. That's where the foundation of all my beliefs are formed. Recently, within the past 3 years, I praise God, was able to come out of some deception within the charismatic church and more of that movement. And through God's grace, I was able to discover true biblical doctrine. And now I am now under a wonderful pastor with true Reformed theology that is teaching me the truth about God. And so with that, with everything that I do, you can't compartmentalize your faith. You have to honor God in everything that you do. And so with that, I decided to get involved in politics. And in 2020, I started working on the Trump campaign, actually. I was a field organizer in Delaware County, Ohio. And then after that, I stayed on with the Ohio Republican Party and worked on their communications team a little bit and also helped with the 2021 special election that happened. And then more recently, this past March, because while I was at Ohio Republican Party, I also worked with our faith coalition, getting Christians involved in what's happening. And so through that, I made some connections with Ohio Right to Life. And this past March is when I officially made the switch over to Ohio Right to Life and took on that position. So I'm very excited. It's a pivotal moment in the movement. There's a lot of decisions that will have to be made about how we move forward in this. And I am very blessed beyond measure to be in this position. And I just try to look to God every day about, what's the right step to take.
Praise God. That's I'm very excited to hear Christians being conformed into the image of Christ and being brought into conformity to his word. And that is really encouraging to hear. Today, our discussion is going to be about the future of how we approach like a post-Roe America. And in particular, when dealing with pill abortion, and more specifically with self-managed abortion. So what our plan for this discussion that we've talked about is we want to give a short history of pill abortion in the United States. And from that, move into what self-managed abortion is and how that relates to the pill abortion industry, and see how we can look to the future and strategize about how to approach the transition from killing children in healthcare facilities under healthcare laws to the transition of killing these same children at home, right, through black market pill abortion. So the history of pill abortion in the United States. It became legal in the U.S. In 2000, right? And it started out the first year, only 1% of all recorded abortions were done by pill abortion. Very, very small number, right? So when we get a lot of these statistics of abortions in the United States, they are only from states that actually report the murders that they conduct within their healthcare facilities, right? So some states don't even report them, right? And not all states that report abortions report medical abortion or pill abortion, right? So when we talk about these numbers, we need to remember that these are just the ones that are reported by healthcare facilities that use these methods to kill the children. So it's not a true number, but it's right. It's a guesstimation. After the first year, that went from 1% of abortions to 5%. And then by like 2015, 16, it was about 16%. And then last year, or 2020, I should say, it rose again to close to 50. And last year, it rose up to about 54%. So within the abortion industry, within the murders that happen inside healthcare facilities that are reported, pill abortions have taken over the industry, right? And how have we so far dealt with the occurrence of pill abortion over the past like 20 years? What have we done?
Yeah, so that's a really good question and great synopsis of what has taken place. Honestly, in today's world, abortion pills are really becoming the new coat hanger abortions. They're doing this from home. They're getting the pill distribution over the phone. Half the time they're not even going into the abortion clinics to get it. And so I can only tell you what we've done here in the state of Ohio. In the state of Ohio, we did pass a telemedicine abortion ban. So you cannot purchase these online or remotely. That unfortunately got enjoined in the court, so that's not taken effect. But once Roe gets overturned, our Attorney General Dave Yost has already said that he plans on lifting any injunctions that are currently in the court. We also have our Chemical Abortion Act that is going through the legislature right now, and what that will do is it will require somebody to not be able to distribute these evil murder pills online or over the phone. And so we are working towards that. The problem with this is just like any drug distribution, it's going to happen regardless because we're in a sinful world, right? People are going to continue to sin even when you make it illegal. That doesn't give us a reason to not work towards doing all that we can do to end it. But sin will still be in this world. So drug distribution will still happen. But here in the state of Ohio, we're very passionate about ending it so that it's not upheld in our laws, so that we don't have laws that are, giving an approval to murder in any way, shape, or form. And so that's currently what we're working on. It's definitely uncharted territory, right? How do we move forward to ensure that women aren't ordering this from some black market website, like I think it's aid
Access.
aid access,
Yeah.
or plan C. They have a website where you can go in there and search how to get it. And so there definitely are a lot of different avenues that we really need to tackle. And it's a moment where it's uncharted territory, and we're trying to figure it out as we go. So we definitely need to approach this with prayer and wisdom.
Yeah. You had mentioned a couple of things that I want to hit on real quick. You said this is the new coat hanger abortion. And it's interesting because a lot of the pro-abortion arguments within academia and within the legislature, that they are moving it to that and saying, hey, coat hanger abortion was dangerous. These methods of implanting and inserting objects in order to kill the child are dangerous. You can't do them at home. High risk of infection, high possibility of death. And that was one of their arguments for keeping abortion healthcare facilities open. But they're now moving towards that is not a reality anymore because the pill has taken over the healthcare industry. And in like manner, it is safe, it is effective, and they're now putting out research. And I'm not saying that I agree with them, but these are their arguments that these pill abortions are safe, and they're showing years worth of research for that. They're showing how effective they are, and it is from these and the pressure that applied during the COVIDs that lifted the you have to show up to a healthcare facility and have a doctor write the prescription and pick up the prescription. So the FDA, after the Supreme Court shut that down during the COVIDs, now some states can do telemed services. But we need to make a distinction between the telemed services that are done inside healthcare facilities and ones that you had mentioned a little bit earlier, like Plan C, where you can find 10 different pill distribution prescription centers like Aid Access, Hey June, Choice, like some of these, right? But where you call the doctor in your area and you can have it prescribed to you there, right? So that's one aspect where it's still inside the healthcare facility or inside the formal healthcare system. But there's a movement that's been really successful over the past 3 to 5 years in particular that is trying to make abortion normalized healthcare over the counter, right? Much like Plan B is, or birth control, or things like this, where you can go to Walgreens. Now they're not that far yet where they can do it in Walgreens or Walmart, but what they have been successful in doing is raising awareness to self-managed abortion outside of the healthcare facility through two different means. And one is like a telemed service like Aid Access, Hey June, which is a Kickstarter that crowdsourced like $3.5 million this year, or Choice, which crowdsourced over $1 million this year. That's one form of pill distribution that's outside of the healthcare facility. And those are generally using the same regimen that's found in healthcare facilities, whether it's mifepristone and misoprostol used together. But we're seeing an even greater rise in stockpiling and distribution through online pop-ups, through social media, of black market and counterfeit only misoprostol use, where they're killing children up to 20 weeks, 25 weeks.
Yeah.
And now those are two different scenarios, and I think we need to talk about each one of them differently, because the laws that you were talking about that your attorney general plans on instituting, well, those are going to be dealing mainly with the healthcare facility providers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to take a break real quick, but when we come back, let's talk about some of these ideas, these three different types of self-managed abortion that's going on in the healthcare facility and the two outside the healthcare facility, and what those numbers look like, and what our laws are able to do about them, and see if we can talk through some of the things we should be looking at. Because I do appreciate what you said, that this is new ground for us, and it is something that we need to prayerfully consider. So we'll be back in a second, but for now, let's hear from the Reformed man and joyful patriarchy wife.
It's no secret that true masculinity is being lost. We are attempting to recapture the essence of true godly manhood, biblically balanced just as the Lord intends it to be. We do this by highlighting the interest of the everyday man and pointing them to real wisdom only found in the gospel. One of our top priorities is to shine light on and support ministries on the front lines battling the evil deeds of the flesh and Satan. A portion of all online sales go to ministries such as Resisting Balaam and Bridge Ministries Laredo to further the kingdom and bring glory to his name. So who are we? We are husbands. We are fathers. We are sons. We are friends. And we are brothers. We are Reformed man.
We are Titus 2 women, seeking to glorify God through the teaching of younger women, biblically, to love their husbands, children, and be keepers of the home.
Not grudgingly or as a legalistic chore, but rather to joyfully sacrifice in loving their husband and children as unto the Lord.
Giving glory to God and finding joy in caring for our families in only the way wives and mothers can.
As God has blessed us with female traits that make our work in the home essential to a godly home.
Okay, I want to thank the Reformed man for their support. Go check out those guys. It's a barbershop in Victoria, Texas, and they run Bible studies and teachings, and they have a podcast as well. There's some good guys. I just taught a class for them last week, so check them out, and check out the Joyful Patriarchy Wife. We are here today with Communication Director from Ohio Right to Life, Lizzie Whitmarsh, and we're talking about self-managed abortion. When we left off, we were talking about the rise of self-managed abortion over the past several years, the awareness that has been brought because of specific things that have happened in our country, and social media, and there is a huge correlation between states that restrict abortion in healthcare facilities and states that have less restrictions, right? But there's a project called Santa Project in University of Texas, and they've been researching self-managed abortions for about 8 years now, and they've been then tracking its prevalence and its occurrence. And around 2016 is when it got its first uptick, right? That's when Texas shut down a whole bunch of its abortion clinics with a law that got repealed eventually. But it still shut down over half of the abortion healthcare facilities. But what they saw was a huge uptick in Texas of self-managed abortion, most of which were coming from Mexico. So it was pill abortion. And but still, the occurrence was like really minor. But it started bringing awareness to the population, and they started doing surveys and started promoting it a lot more through social media groups like If, When, How, and such like that. There was a huge promotion campaign, but it really still was minor, so to speak. Like for Texas, about 2,500 babies are killed every month, so about 170 or so a day. At that time, maybe we were getting about 2 or 3 a day of self-managed abortion, really a small number. But then when the COVIDs hit, and they did numbers for the times that healthcare facilities, elective healthcare facilities, were shut down, and they saw an uptick in prescriptions written by Aid Access alone. So that's only one distribution company, and they saw it rise to about 10, 15 a day, right? And then once the heartbeat bill went into effect, we saw in healthcare facilities in Texas a huge drop in the number of children that were killed inside the healthcare facilities, right? They dropped from 2,500 a month down to somewhere around 1,500 a month. So, right. So that brought us down to about 70 to 80 a day that we were killing in Texas in healthcare facilities. But at the same time, through Aid Access, we saw a rise of about 50 a day getting prescriptions from Aid Access alone. That doesn't include all of the other major wanting to be legitimate pill distribution centers, right? And it also doesn't include all of the underground meso distribution centers that are popping up everywhere in Texas. So what we're seeing is not really a decrease in overall deaths of children. We're just seeing them, because of healthcare laws, no longer being killed in healthcare facilities, but the same number of being killed just at home, right? So the laws that you're talking about in Ohio would do a good job of not allowing healthcare facilities to distribute pills. But it would do absolutely nothing to these out-of-country pill distribution centers or whatnot. They've been bragging for the past 6 months that not only are their numbers increasing, but these laws don't affect them. They're out of country. Nobody's done anything to stop them. There hasn't been one single package that has been intercepted or stopped. So how do we move into an industry that is saying that there is nothing that you can do to us? We're still going to keep doing this, and it's an industry that's growing.
Yeah, all good questions, and like I said, uncharted territory. So we're figuring this out as we see what's happening within this evil market of distributing these drugs. One point that I did want to hit on is So with the telemedicine ban, that doesn't just ban doctors; it does also affect these websites. So Plan C, I'm more familiar with Plan C than I am Aid Access, but I know that with Plan C, you cannot order it through there if your state has banned it through telemedicine. So it is touching that for some websites. Obviously, not all. We're dealing with evil here. I mean, the people who are, bent towards allowing women to murder their children are going to find a way to
Right.
help them sacrifice it to, their god
Right.
of convenience. So I mean, they'll definitely find where there's a will, there's a way. So I definitely recognize that there is going to be some black market distribution. However, our bill would tackle more of the mainstream websites that are equally as evil, but they do, at least on the surface. I'm sure there's stuff that's happening behind the surface where they say, "Oh, sorry, we can't ship this to you because your state," and there might be a way around that. But as far as on the surface, it would affect it where they aren't able to ship it to people within the state of Ohio. But
Right.
with that, that gets into more um, a deeper discussion about, interstate commerce and the FDA distribution and things along that way. And so I think really this issue, number one, we have to change it through changing hearts and minds, spreading the gospel. I think as Christians, we do more to stop the evil of abortion than any pro-life politician could ever do. Any pro-life law could ever do. If we I mean, we outlaw, murder of the already born is outlawed, and that still happens every single day, as we just saw what happened in Texas. And so it's the hearts and minds, it's the gospel that really needs to penetrate the hearts of these women and the hearts of these doctors and the people who are distributing the abortion pills. So I think that as a Christian, that's my number one priority, is sharing the truth so that we can really put an end to it, because we know that's the only way to sanctify our hearts and minds is through that. But also through a legal aspect. I think that, looking at a national level, seeing what we can do on a national level. Part of what you spoke about is the true the danger of these pills. Obviously, they're marketing it as though, like you said, I believe it's on Aid Access or Plan C. One of the websites say that it's less dangerous than Tylenol.
Right.
It's pure insanity. If you look at any study on the abortion pill, you can see that it is completely dangerous to women. There's I just wrote an article about this in the Columbus Dispatch, and I outlined how the most recent study showed that there was over 2,000 adverse effects in their study that they did. I think it was 2,600 adverse effects. There was 598 or something around that number of true life threatening situations, and there was 20 deaths that came from that. There was also, for all the talk that they say about how the pro-life industry doesn't care about ectopic pregnancies, they're gonna make women go through these dangerous ectopic pregnancies. Well, there's 75 in the study that I did. I'm sure there's more in reality, but there was 75 undiagnosed ectopic pregnancies within that. I mean, when you're doing it online and you aren't looking at an ultrasound, you're not seeing the human being that's in the mother's womb. How can you diagnose an ectopic pregnancy? You can't, because it's not there. And so these are extremely dangerous to women. They are not safe at all. The science is clear on that, and God is clear that no matter the safety, it's evil. And so this definitely, I think, is gonna have to be something from a national level. I don't know, and I say that as an individual. I'm not speaking for my organization when I say that, because we haven't had a specific conversation about that, about moving to a national level. But I just don't see how we avoid that, right? Because there is interstate commerce, there is the national FDA drug distribution and things along that nature. So I feel like it's going to have to come from that level.
Yeah. And you're right that there are certain restrictions on Plan C, Aid Access, all of these, because Aid Access is just a hub where you can go and search where to go to get these, right? And so some of them do have restrictions on there, but they've already set up infrastructure to send pills to, free states, and from there get sent to wherever you are in a, you can't kill children state. So a lot of these types of infrastructure are already currently being utilized and set up. And so we do need to figure out how are we going to dismantle or at least disrupt some of the supply issue or distribution issue of these pills coming through. And you had brought up a question, a statement about the murder of born children, right? Yeah, we have laws on the books about murdering people that are born, and those laws apply justice to those actions. So we realize that you can have a law that says you can't kill someone, and then when you kill someone, the law doesn't stop somebody from killing someone, but it gives the state a sword to apply justice for that death. But what we don't have, and this is the only form of criminal homicide that we don't have it for, it is an application of justice for the people involved with killing a human. This is the only form of criminal homicide that part is missing. So what are our approaches to justice to apply the same laws, same criminal homicide laws to all people, whether they're born or unborn? Is there an approach where we do see the deaths of these children the same way as we do with born people? Not that it's going to stop it, but that there's at least going to be justice for those deaths and act as a restraint against future occurrences.
Yeah, our current bill that we have working through the legislature right now, the Human Life Protection Act, that does criminalize the act of abortion. It's not a fine; it is criminalizing the act of performing an abortion. So we are working towards that. I know that there's definitely debate amongst who should be criminalized within for who's responsible for the abortion, and within the pro-life movement there's very passionate debate about that. Right now our current bill, it does criminalize the doctors that are performing it. That's where we're at currently.
Yeah. What is the future hold? I mean, I saw that your organization signed the National Right to Life thing, that they're never going to seek prosecution for women, that they will always be the only demographic removed from the judicial process for any type of criminal homicide. Is that something that you guys stand by, and you have no intention of ever in the foreseeable future, you want to continue to target them as the only demographic that's removed from the judicial process? That's your guys' position?
Yeah, so as an official organization, we did sign that letter. Any change in our organization would have to be debated and approved amongst our board members. It's not, Lizzie Whitmarsh who gets to decide what the organization stands for, or our president or anything like that. It would have to go through a healthy debate within our board. So as of right now, that is where we stand as an organization. That's what the board has decided to stand by. So that is where we're at. I mean, I pray daily that, we continue to move towards justice, and that we are sanctified within our
Mhm.
organization to lean more towards, biblical truth. And so if moving towards biblical truth is changing that stance that we have on that, then I openly welcome that. But yes, currently right now, that is where our organization stands.
So, is your organization open to discussion and debate on that topic?
I would say yes, there's definitely, been some discussion. As of right now, it's not something that, there hasn't been a motion to change that. But I definitely think that the hearts and minds that are at our organization are dedicated to justice. We're dedicated to doing right by the woman, the children, the doctor. I mean, ultimately, I want everybody to have, a changed heart and mind. And
Mhm.
so everyone that's at the organization is actively, seeking to be sanctified daily in their pro-life beliefs. So I think that, with that, we would be open to hearing something if it would be closer resembling true biblical justice. Like I said, just right now, that's not where
Mhm.
we're at, and that's
Mhm.
not there hasn't been a motion at any of our board meetings to change that. But I don't see why we wouldn't at least be open to talking about it and seeing if that is, a proper move that we need to make.
Well, I would like to invite your your board, or however that goes, to have a discussion with me, an open public panel discussion live. I'd come out there and talk through some of these issues. So I'd like to invite you guys to one of those discussions. Hopefully we'll be able to set something like that up in the future to discuss these things, because really I don't see a way to stem the tide of this transition to self-managed abortion without um, applying equal justice to all principal actors, all co-conspirators, and all accomplices to all forms of criminal homicide. I don't see a way where you can really minimize the deaths and promote justice, especially when you've removed doctors and healthcare from facilities from the act of killing children, and the only people involved are pill distributors that you have no access to because they're out of the country, and the people ordering them, or the men paying for them, or whatever. I don't think there's any way to get around that. Each individual case needs to be adjudicated based off of the evidence and merits of that case, instead of just wholesale removing one demographic. That I don't see any justification for that.
Yeah.
And I, without that type of criminalization, what I see is an impotence to this, for the state to really do anything. So how do we get there? How do we get to a point to where we can have these discussions with organizations and lobbyists and pro-life legislators themselves? How do we get to a point where we can have these conversations publicly, where that is a position that has been held to very tightly for a long time. How do we get to a point where we can have those discussions? Because so far I have had zero luck with any pro-life organization or lawyer or legislator willing to talk publicly about it. They want their whole stance is, we've never done this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like even religious elites, professors and Christian ethicists, we don't support the punishment of women, and here's why. And then they spend their whole article talking about doctors.
Yeah.
Well, your article was supposed to be about self-managed abortion, and there's no doctor. Like, you've got to come up with a new argument. If that's your position, that's fine. But let's deal with the topic. How do we get to a point where we can have those discussions?
Yeah, I think that, well, first and foremost, I think that we are getting more and more to that point. The closer that we get to, not having the scapegoat of Roe and a majority of states in the United States banning abortion, I feel like it's going to have to be a discussion that comes front and center because of the things that you spoke about. I think that continuing to plant seeds. I know I sound like a broken record with this, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that preaching the gospel is
Mm-hmm.
ultimately how we do that. And the sad part about the pro-life movement, just as any movement in the United States, is there's a lot of unsaved people that are running the pro-life movement. There's a lot of people who are trying to compartmentalize their faith with
Mm-hmm.
the issue of abortion, and they try to tackle it through a position of science or facts and logic, and all those things are great. Science is amazing. It completely backs up our reasoning of, hey, this is a human life, it's murder. But that's not the basis of why I believe abortion is wrong. I believe abortion is wrong because the Bible first says, first and foremost, that God created us in our mother's womb, and every human being is created in the image of God. Therefore, we can't murder them. That's my basis for that, not science. Science it backs up what I say, but even if science went away, I would still stand firm to that. And I think that we need to do a better job of bringing God back into the discussion, because when we separate the two, when we try to separate the faith-based reason of why we're against abortion versus the real reason, which is science, it enters sin into it, where we can't see clearly, and we're trying to use our own understanding, and God tells us not to lean on our own understanding. So I think first and foremost that really has to be the focus, is getting these people saved, whether they're in the pro-life movement or in the pro-abortion movement. I think changing their hearts and mind to be towards God and to be justified and sanctified, that would do wonders. Because when you are operating under, being saved and being born again, you have no qualm with the idea of being held accountable for your sin, right? The wages of sin is death. God by no means will clear the guilty. And so you and just inherently, because of your new spirit that God has given you, you're inherently more open to the justice for sin. And so I think that that's really where we need to battle this. It's more of a cultural aspect with that within the pro-life movement, and speaking with love, the truth in love. I think that really is where we need to move forward with that.
That's a good answer. I like how you keep coming back to the gospel and coming back to the Word of God, and saying this has to be our focus. Yes, God has revealed Himself in the light of nature, and things like science do back up what we're saying. They do shut the mouth of the fool, but really, when it comes down to it, God has said you don't get to unjustly kill people, and He has said that it is an abomination for you to justify the wicked. You don't get to do that. You don't get to condone wicked actions and justify them by showing partiality, right? You don't get to use unequal weights and measures. Those things are an abomination to Him, and they perpetuate the blood going into the ground and polluting the land, which will vomit us up. So I very much appreciate that. I do like your optimism that you think that because this scapegoat, like you said, of Roe versus Wade, which has been a scapegoat, it has been a very weak excuse to limit what you can do based solely off of a myth, and it's not even real. We've acted as if it's real, and we have submitted to it. But now that is being taken away, I like your optimism that the conversation is going to move towards that. I don't really share that optimism, because as soon as the leak happened, we had the drop of this statement. We had Louisiana try to put a bill of equal justice, and the entire pro-life movement as a whole, just with some minor exceptions, but as a whole, came out against this because, one, it does not target women as the only demographic removed from the judicial process. So I would love to share your optimism, but it seems as though with the removal of Roe versus Wade as the scapegoat, they are still doubling down on this one principle. And in fact, you have like governors saying, hey, we have these trigger bills that I guess are going to go into effect. We need to rethink them. I didn't realize that Roe versus Wade would ever get overturned, but we need to start rethinking them. So they're even trying to walk back the trigger bills that they already have. I'm not quite so optimistic as you, though I believe that God is sovereign and will do his good pleasure, and all things happen according to his will. So in that, I'm optimistic. I would like to continue these conversations, and I am appreciative that you think that the conversations are going to go this direction, where we can have honest debate between opposing sides, because that's where you get to the truth. What we've seen so far is a complete unwillingness by any pro-life organization to have these discussions with us. But I hope you're right. I do. I hope that there is a willingness to at least have these discussions, and I would like to invite your organization to an open panel discussion. I'll grab some of my friends that are more on my side, and we can sit and have a live discussion with members from your organization, in order to, one, for us to be able to talk through these issues, but show our followers, how do we deal as Christians together in things that we disagree with? How do we sort through these details? How do I defend my position? That's one thing that I think is really lacking, is teaching. Like, if you really believe that you shouldn't, that you shouldn't punish women, okay, you can have that position. Teach people how to defend it. You can't just say it, right? And your organizations as a whole are not doing a good job of really teaching how to defend that position. So I do want to give this open invitation. I hope you get back to me, and that your optimism is correct, and that we can have these discussions. What other plans do you guys have for the future?
Yeah, well, one thing I just want to add quickly before I answer is, we are seeing some change of the hearts and minds within the pro-life movement on this topic alone. I know that Abby Johnson, for a very long time, was a huge proponent of the traditional pro-life belief that we shouldn't, punish women, and that they're the second victim. And she recently came out against that. And so
I talked to her.
I do
Samuel
see
Say also.
I actually just, because Samuel Say moved here to Ohio, so I actually just met up with him yesterday. Very wonderful man of God. So there are people that are honestly seeking after truth, and so I do think that it's going to usher in more honest discussion around this, and I just don't see how we can avoid it once we do get to the point where a state can ban abortion fully and criminalize it if they choose to. You have to talk about these things. You can't avoid the uneasy questions that we have had the ability to kind of avoid for the past 49 years, right? So I definitely think that some things will come to the surface. As far as what we're doing in the future, Ohio Right to Life, obviously our number one priority right now is to end abortion in the state of Ohio and get that done as soon as possible, and also navigate these new waters with the chemical abortions, with the abortion pill. I think that will be our number one priority, is figuring out how we can, really tackle this in an effective way, not just in a virtue signaling way, but in an effective way that's actually going to stop it. And then also we want to create a culture of life. We want to really, especially as a communications director, it's my job to really message to the public what is truth. And so I'm very blessed that I was given this position, and I hope that through my work, from a grassroots level, I'm able to really try to, talk to these women and men that find themselves in these rough situations, that there is hope, there is a future. You don't have to choose between, murdering your child and having success in your career, or whatever else you're trying to choose between. And also just bringing back the focus to families. I think that when you look at the history of this, it really stems back from the sexual revolution. It stems back from the idea of having consequenceless sex. And we know that obviously sex is a gift from God for, a man and a woman who are married. It's absolutely, he gave us it for pleasure, but first and foremost, he gave us it to fill the world with people. It's meant for procreation. And so the idea that consent to sex isn't consent to a pregnancy is just, it's insane. And so I think really tackling that and getting to the truth of the matter, that's going to be my biggest focus as communications director, is really bringing it back to a message of God and pure sexuality, and what does biblical sexuality look like.
Oh, that's great. How can people find you online?
So you can find our organization. It's ohiolife.org. On Twitter, it's Ohio Life, at Ohio Life, and on Facebook and Instagram, it's Ohio Right to Life. And my personal Twitter is Liz Whitmarsh, at Liz Whitmarsh. It's LIZZWHITMARSH. And on Instagram, it's Lizzie Whitmarsh as well. So.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Share my invitation with your board, and let's see if we can make some of these discussions happen. And until then, join the resistance and wield the sword of truth. Our Lord has left us here to navigate through this world as priests in the kingdom of God. Apply the mind of Christ and battle against a culture that hates God and loves death.